Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome, everyone, to Web3 Warriors, episode 63, featuring Julien Genestoux.
Yes,
Thank you for
did well.
joining us, Julien. You are the founder of Unlock Protocol, a very interesting, cool project that's looking at creating membership-based NFTs and empowering, creators through the use of NFTs for memberships and token gating, which is a really cool concept. So thank you again for joining, Julien. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, excited to talk about NFTs as membership cards, basically.
Awesome. So thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm your host, David Karoma, and I go by Chrome in the metaverse. And like we mentioned, this week we'll be looking at the idea of NFTs being a powerful tool for membership. And we've looked at really the idea of NFTs for token gating in the metaverse, and the idea that you could actually create little exclusive places where only people who are holding your NFT can come and kind of congregate, or you could even make an event in the metaverse where only people who have the event ticket NFT would be able to access that event. So that's one kind of use case that we've seen. But I think taking a step back and looking at the broader concept of NFTs as membership tokens is a really cool kind of area, especially even just IRL, right? Like you can show up at an IRL event and use an NFT as your ticket to get in. Or maybe it's the VIP version of the ticket that gets you a free drink or something else, as opposed to just paying $10 at the door, right? So that's kind of some of the cool use cases we've looked at. So I'm really interested in Unlock Protocol as a concept, and the idea of basically making that easier for creators and really maybe empowering creators through the use of these NFTs for membership specifically. So without any further ado, maybe we'll jump over to Julien before we really dive into Unlock Protocol. I'd love to just hear a little bit about your background and what brought you to Web3, and then we'll jump into your project. But what brings you to Web3, Julien?
It's a good question. It's a long journey. I'm a big open web fan. My background is really I'm an engineer, but really been in the web space for 20 years at this point. Really passionate about the idea that this is our collective brain. This is how we collaborate as human beings on this earth. And I'd say before Web3, I realized slowly that the web was getting more and more sick, more and more malfunctioning in some way. Because of multiple things, but one of these things is because it was actually more and more centralized, because fewer and fewer actors had more and more control over everything we do online. And these are the big tech companies, right? You probably know of big tech: Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, the FANG, as they're time being called. And really my previous company was doing RSS feed APIs. I don't know if your listeners know of RSS, but RSS, really simple syndication. That's a core open web protocol that's been around for 20 years as well. And I sold that company to Medium, the publishing platform, and I worked for Medium for a couple of years. And I was there when Medium tried to monetize. And really my first journey to Web3 happened at Medium, when Medium started to say, okay, we're going to not be able to do ads for multiple reasons, and because probably the CPMs were getting too low or the experience would be completely degraded, but to do a membership model. And I realized, well, if Medium does a membership, maybe that's something that can actually happen across the web. Every website could have its own membership thing. And maybe it's, sometimes it's paid, sometimes it's earned, but really being able to kind of do that club model, if you want, for big passionate communities online. And so that's how I explored NFTs in 2019, so very the beginning of 2018, actually, very beginning of the NFT space. CryptoKitties was barely starting to happen at the time. I don't know if people know of CryptoKitties. That's one of the OG NFT projects / games, and that's how I ended up in Web3.
Oh, nice. Very cool. So Medium, that's a really great kind of platform for creators and writers specifically, right? And so looking at the membership model, how did that inspire kind of Unlock Protocol, I guess, and the idea that NFTs could be that form of membership?
Yeah, so Medium did this membership, and basically, long story short, people can pay $5 a month to get access to some stories that are behind the paywall, but also some extra features. And one of the features that people ask a lot about is the green halo around your avatar. If you're a Medium paying members, you're kind of going to have a green halo around your avatar. And when Medium did this, first, I was actually surprised by how well it worked in the beginning. And then I realized, well, wait, if Medium does this, every single website could and should do that. We are already seeing most of the news media outlets like New York Times and others having paywalls. But then it was realized random bloggers, random indie creators, maybe indie games, any kind of little application should have its own little membership model where people pay to access certain features. It doesn't have to be crazy expensive. It doesn't have to be even $10. It could be $1 or $2 a month, because that's really what we call it the ARPU, the average revenue per user. If you look at these numbers with ads, they're actually fairly low. They're usually sub-$1. And so having a website that says, I'm going to charge you $1 a month, is definitely not a lot of money in most places. I should acknowledge this, that in some places in the world, it is a lot of money, but in most places, it's not that much. You could actually make more money than with ads, and at the same time, create a unique relationship between you, the creator of the content on the blog or on the game, and your fans, the players, the people that are reading this. And so that's really how the idea came about.
That's really cool. That's fascinating. Makes sense for sure. So what would you say is kind of the mission and vision of Unlock Protocol? I mean, I know you talk about that membership-based NFTs, but what's the overall mission of the protocol?
Yeah. It's a very good question. The overall mission is to actually get to a point where the web becomes healthier, where it's not so much about attention grabbing schemes, because a lot of the web is this. I don't use YouTube or Facebook that much, but whenever I go there, it's just a constant stream of attention grabbing things that are actually not that interesting, not that useful, not making me smarter in any way. And what frustrates me, outside of the fact that it's crap, let's say this, is that there's actually really awesome content, but this awesome content doesn't get the visibility it needs because it is not attention grabbing. So it's kind of like we promote the stuff that is kind of not that useful because it is good at grabbing attention, but the stuff that is useful, interesting, is basically buried under a ton of crap. And to me,
we're
that's
struggling
kind of
with that right now as a podcast. Unless you pay them a bunch of money, you know, your metrics aren't as they don't look as great, you know, and you got to have those real eye-catching thumbnails, and like you say, it comes down to like you almost feel like you're trying to manipulate someone. It's like try to manipulate people as much as you can. It's like I'd rather not.
You are. I mean, that's the thing is like right now, if you want to make money, I mean, I'm sure there's people that make money, but like the people that are getting the more money out of that system are the ones that are actually not providing the best kind of content, the most interesting one, but the one that are the best at these kind of attention tricks, like, you know, here's what happened, kind of, you know, the headline, like, guess what happened after she's done XYZ, and then everybody clicks on this. Or, you know, it's kind of frustrating to me because, again, I do think that the web is our collective brain. This is how society functions. I mean, you're in Winnipeg, I'm in New York State, we're having a call right now. If it wasn't for the internet, it would be impossible. There's no way we could have interacted at that point. And so imagining a world in which that internet is more healthy, more sustainable, I think is a good one. And so that's really kind of the vision that we have, is like moving away from the attention economy to what we call the membership economy, where people pay to be part of organization and systems that they're interested in.
Very cool, very cool. So how does it work, I guess, is a great question. And let's start there. How does it work? And have you made it easy? Have you made this membership concept easy for people?
You know, we made it easier than what it was 2 or 3 years ago. I do think that we still have some work to do, and I'm convinced that we're going to be able to do that work. So how does it work? First, it starts with a creator, with somebody like you, basically, that says, I'm going to deploy a membership contract. And when you deploy a membership contract, we have a UI for this, right? You don't have to write code. You set the terms of the contract. You know, the duration of each membership can be a week, a month, a year, 5 seconds. I don't think it makes a ton of sense, but you decide what is the base duration of these membership. You set the price for the membership, how much people are going to pay, if they're going to pay. You might even have free membership that are claimable, or free membership that you would grant to people. And then basically you set a bunch of other terms, like, you know, cancellation and all of that, if you want to allow people to do this. And then the idea is, like, once you have this, you can bring that smart contract into any of the toolings that you might want to use, where you would treat people that have a membership differently from people that don't have a membership. So again, we're going to talk about token gating here, but it's different stuff. Token gating is what we call access. There's kind of status as well. So as I said earlier, like the medium halo around your avatar. I don't know if people are going to be able to access this in video, but like at the bottom of my screen here, you can pretty see there's a bunch of small icons. These are my members, so it's kind of a status thing. They don't access anything special, but part of their status, like, they get to be displayed as overlay on my call. So there's access, there's status, and then there's stuff. It's like all of the benefits that you can get from, say, if I was a e-commerce seller, I can give discounts to people that have my membership. That's the Amazon Prime membership model, right? Like, if you got Amazon Prime, every item that you order is free ship. I mean, you get next day free shipping, or whatever is their marketing term of the days.
Right.
And so that's the stuff that you can get. But if you think about, stuff, it could also be maybe swag, like maybe, once a month to all of my fans, I send, a hat or that kind of thing. Let's take another example. YouTubers these days, a lot of them use Patreon. Well, content, unfortunately on YouTube, there's no way to actually token gate or say only people are going to be doing this, but you get status. At the end of the YouTube video, you'll see all of these kind of, names of the supporters. That is status, like, people are recognized this way.
For sure, yeah.
And they can get t-shirts. A lot of people, when you have a Patreon campaign, they do send t-shirts to their fans. What we were trying to do is say this membership shouldn't be tied to a specific platform. So it shouldn't be tied to Patreon or YouTube or Medium or Substack. It should be something that exists independently on all of these things, not in a database, that you're in full control of, you as a creator. So it's your contract. We have zero control of that contract, obviously. Yours, you can do whatever you want with this. You can display it on whatever website you want. And then it has at its core the base capabilities of any kind of membership.
Wow. I'm trying to wrap my head around how it works in functionality, but I definitely see the concept.
Yeah.
So how do you connect it to, let's say, for example, I was poking around a little bit and I noticed, like, I could connect my Web3 Warriors podcast channel, right? And so, and then we can create essentially like a claim site where anyone kind of through our network on Twitter, we let people know we've set up this claim site. If you want to be a member of the Web3 Warriors community, you have until X day to claim these tokens, and anyone who claims it will get, a wearable in the metaverse that we'll just send out to everybody, and maybe some kind of perks in the future. So from the point of, I guess, providing my Twitter, what is it actually doing?
So basically, you would have your Twitter, you would create a claim page as the one that you describe. If it's a claim, if it's a free one, or we call that a checkout page. And we have a UI to do this where people are able to connect their wallet or pay with card to purchase one of these NFTs. And then they have the NFT in their wallet. And then what you can do next is really up to you. Let's say you're using WordPress. I actually don't know if you use WordPress, but let's say you're using WordPress as a CMS. Well, you can use a WordPress plugin to say only the people that have the NFT can access the content. There's similar plugins for, a ton of other integration. We have one in progress for Ghost, for Webflow, for Squarespace, all of these kind of things.
You think it'll work on Wix? What about Wix?
I think there is an integration in Wix. I haven't played with this, but yes.
These CMSs have integrated Web3 widgets already?
It's either them, or most of the time it's like people in their community that have created plugins specifically. So either way, but even like podcasts, like my hope is that, and we actually spoke with them, at some point Spotify will have the ability to say only the people that have a specific NFT can listen or subscribe to a special feed. So you could have like a free feed and then a paid feed. And I know a bunch of your fellow podcasters are doing this. There's the shared open for everyone, and then the premium one that is closed to people. And what's interesting, you might say, what's in it for the platform? Why would the platform token gate there? Well, because I do think that the platform can then even prompt people to purchase the NFT. So imagine a scenario where you publish to Spotify and you have two feeds, the free open to everyone and then the premium one, and you tell Spotify, hey, the premium one, it's only for the people that have this specific NFT. Well, you can even tell Spotify, if you want to sell my memberships, go ahead, I'll get paid, but you give them a cut. You can actually construct or program the smart contract, and we have a UI for this again, to make it so that there's a cut, a referral cut, as we call this, that goes to Spotify in that example. So Spotify say, hey, sure, we'll promote your paid channel, but only if you give us 20% of any sale that you make. And you then, a creator, can decide like, yes, okay, this is a fair deal, or no, I don't want this, and I'm going to keep posting only the free content on Spotify and the paid one on some other platform.
Wow. And in that scenario, Spotify would require essentially a decentralized wallet, right? Like it would be a USDC wallet or something.
Probably would require people to connect the wallet, yes. But it doesn't even have to, because you have to think like, most people, I don't think, my vision of Web3 in the future is like most people will have multiple Web3 wallets without actually knowing this. Because, you can use a service that actually create a 0x1234 address for you without you telling about this, because you have an account, you have an email password with them, and they can identify that you are this address, and then they know that you have the NFT. Cool, you can read the content, you can access the content or not.
That's kind of like what Starbucks is doing, right?
That's exactly what Starbucks is doing, for example, yes. But not just them. You can think there's actually a Reddit. You probably know of this, but Reddit minted a ton of NFTs. They didn't call them NFTs; they called them digital avatars, because they were worried that they're going to get some backlash. And a lot of users don't even know that they're NFTs and there's a wallet behind it. It's just abstracted away. The whole concept of account abstraction, which is kind of a term in the EVM Ethereum community, is, I think, around that idea that the account doesn't have to be just a private key that the user controls. It could be any kind of object, including stuff that companies are providing to users without users necessarily knowing about.
Wow.
Makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And with that, I guess what makes that easier is that it is on a layer 2, right? And I see that you have gone with Polygon, as did both, I think, Reddit and Starbucks. So what is the power of Polygon that makes this the most kind of
so as a matter of fact, Unlock is not deployed just on Polygon. It is deployed on Polygon, but we're right now on 9 different networks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All of the EVM compatible network. EVM is the Ethereum virtual machine that is coming from the Ethereum world, and Polygon is definitely the most popular chain for us these days. But we're also on Gnosis chain, which I personally like very much, or Optimism, Arbitrum. We'll be on Base, the Coinbase L2 whenever it launches. Our point here is like, it's not our choice. It's you, the creator, who should decide where you want to deploy your membership. In the same way that you, as a creator, when you want to host your website, you get to choose whether you want to do it on some hosting provider or some other hosting provider. It's not my choice to tell you where you should go. But we should make our stuff available everywhere. And so our vision is to be on every EVM network and then let you choose. Now, when you're asking about Polygon, I think it's the most popular these days because it's obviously, I think, a good mix between cheaper gas costs are a challenge on mainnet, but also fairly usable and well integrated into the ecosystem, right? Your regular wallet will work with Polygon without you having to do anything special there.
Wow. So it defaults to Polygon then. I'm familiar with Arbitrum, a DAO that I work with, Dream Conduit. We are built on Arbitrum, essentially all our membership tokens and everything, because we looked into Polygon and there seems to just be certain elements of centralization as opposed to, the ZK rollup and kind of the more Ethereum based, I guess, decentralized layer 2.
So let's be clear, right? At this point, the only really decentralized approach is actually go on Ethereum mainnet. That's the most decentralized of all of the EVM ecosystem. Polygon does have a limited set of what they call validators. It is more centralized. Whether it is censorable, I actually don't think it is. Arbitrum, Optimism, all of these so-called rollups also have a fairly strong centralization in terms of having usually a single sequencer, and then whoever controls the sequencer kind of controls the chain. But this is all work in progress, and I don't think, my vision of all of these things is like, obviously we're all moving at the same time, and so of course now they are more centralized, but it's still better than even 3 years ago when there was no option outside of Ethereum mainnet where the gas was crazy high. And so I think we're basically all pushing the ecosystem forward. Some places are more advanced on the decentralized nature. Some others are more advanced on the usability nature of things. To me, that's it's just a matter of time. It's eventual consistency.
Right.
Eventually, we'll be in a world where it's all easier to go do all of these things.
Yeah, for sure. And functionality, right? Like they seem to all have their own kind of strengths when it comes to these layer 2s. So how do you feel about other blockchains then? You're pretty clearly laying on the EVM and the Ethereum ecosystem here. But when you look at like a Tezos or a Solana, do you see similar capabilities to be able to make it as like easy and functional to do these kind of things?
In theory, yes. That said, when we created Unlock, there was only one. There was Ethereum. Solana was not a thing, and then Tezos was still, I think, testnet. So there's no other way we could go there.
Wow, I should ask, how long you been developing this now?
Almost 5 years.
Okay, wow, beautiful.
Almost 5
That's
years.
amazing. So you're really ahead of the game then.
Yeah, definitely, and I still think we are, which is sometimes frustrating because things is moving too slow. But so going back to the choice, honestly, I don't know enough about Solana or about Tezos. I know that we could eventually have something that looks like Unlock on all of these things, but what we optimize for is basically size of the community, not just the user base, but the developer base. Like we didn't want to rebuild everything from scratch. So one of the things that is critical to Unlock, I think, is the concept of stable coins. Most memberships are not going to be priced in ETH or volatile tokens. They might be priced in USDC, your Netflix account, or maybe Canadian dollars if you're in Canada. But your most memberships will be priced in stable coins versus based on your local currency. That's something that we need to have. At the time, I actually don't even know that Solana now has a stable coin.
Yeah, they do. They support Circle jumped over there, so they have a USDC. They have a USDC on Solana now. But definitely, I agree. Stablecoin is kind of a key aspect of it, and I think when it comes to Web3 natives, we're all just used to using US stablecoin. Although I've heard there's a Canadian out there trying to make a Canadian stablecoin, but I don't know what the demand will be like.
Stablecoin, there's a Euro one, and we'll see more and more of these. Actually, one of the features that we have is like, even though it is important for us to be able to take creators, hey, you charge whatever currency you want, we've added what we call swap and purchase, which is basically the ability for a user, whenever they are going through the checkout that I described earlier, to choose what currency they want to pay in, knowing that the creator on the other side is going to be paid in the one that they want. So if you set, Canadian dollar, whatever stable Canadian dollar coin for your membership, and I don't have any of these in my wallet, I can still pay in USDC, and it's going to be swapped in real time in a single transaction using Uniswap to whatever you want. So basically, as in practice, you get paid in what you want, I pay in what I want, and the smart contract is smart enough, that's the point of smart contracts, to actually do the conversion between the two and charging me the right amount and paying you the right amount as well.
It is, but that looking at automatically going to Uniswap and doing that swap, wouldn't there be some excessive gas fees in this EVM ecosystem?
On mainnet, yes.
Yeah.
On Polygon, we're talking about 1 or 2 cents,
So
which is much.
Uniswap respects the Polygon layer 2 as well and does swaps
Yeah.
on layer 2.
Yeah, Uniswap is on now. I think pretty much all of EVM, the same that we are on. I mean, maybe not all, but like they are definitely on Ethereum mainnet, on Polygon, Optimism, Arbitrum, Binance.
Yeah, I just thought when they do the swap, there's always the gas is on layer 1.
They do swap locally. They do swap on the local chain.
Okay,
and so, and again, we're talking here about membership that are like $10, right? So
right,
like there is no slippage from a practical perspective. If there was, if it was talking about millions of dollars, then on some chain there might be liquidity issues and you might see a price that is not correct. But on local chains, there's always enough to do a swap of like $10 or even $5, or even maybe a couple $100. It would be fine.
Right. Yeah. No, that's really fascinating. I'm not as much into the DeFi side of things. I'm definitely more on the creator side. So I still am not 100% on my Uniswap. Every time I go there, like I'm sure you're familiar. You heard this latest crazy coin was the Pepe coin, and a bunch of my friends are like, oh, trying to like feed me the FOMO, and I look at it, I'm like, I can't justify $50 in gas to buy like $20 of a crazy coin.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, this for me is, I'm not into DeFi ecosystem. I do think DeFi, exactly like actually TradFi, is a tool. It's something that should enable something else, and it's not just about speculation. Like, sure, there is a use case for speculation. I'm not gonna, but I think it's useful for people. I'm French. I live in the U.S. Swapping money is something that I want to do, and it's a basic thing that everybody should be able to do, right?
Yeah.
As in the use case that I described, it's like a creator wants to be paid in a coin, the user wants to pay another one. It should be completely transparent. It's kind of like it should be a default kind of infrastructure that you use, and all of DeFi should be like this in my mind. Like when it's not about like, okay, buying and selling tokens that are going up and down. It's like, oh, I need to borrow money to do something else that has a higher yield than the interest rate that I'm paying on that mortgage or on that loan. So I see DeFi as a infrastructure that allows us to build interesting application for creators and beyond.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it definitely adds energy to, like you said, the overall developer ecosystem in Ethereum, right? And it's a big part of why there are so many active developers here, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So looking at this concept of decentralized membership, who would you say are kind of your main competitors? Although I like to say in Web3 there's no more competition, it's just collaboration, but if you're looking at it, how would you say what's the most comparable kind of use cases that you're up against there?
Yeah, so the biggest one is that people just deploying their own NFT contract, a random contract that they fork from OpenZeppelin and doing this. I'd say this is the biggest competition, and I should say, when you deploy through Unlock, it's still your contract, but you don't create the code for that specific contract. And the reason why, for me, it's kind of annoying is because when people do this, they're missing a ton of key features about memberships. One of the things that Unlock membership have is like NFTs with an expiration date. Your Netflix account expires every month. It gets extended every month as well because you keep paying, or your, any kind of membership you're thinking of. Your gym membership expires every month and it is renewed because you automatically pay another month. If you took a regular NFT, used for collectible, you don't have that expiration date, which means that it's really, really hard for you as a business, as a creator, to have an ongoing revenue stream. And like you sell all your NFT once, you make all the money in 2 weeks, great. But then what you're going to do in 6 months, in a year, you're going to sell more. People that you've sold it to in the beginning might be upset about that. And so for me, that's one of the key features that's missing. But again, we have all of the cancellation, transfer, all of the metadata that might be associated with this, the ability to purchase with card. It's actually hard-coded in the smart contract itself. It's not just off-chain. These are features that I think are critical. So when it comes to competition, I think the biggest one is this. The second is people creating, an ad hoc contract and making it not compatible with other tools that might exist out there. Another competition that actually has mostly disappeared these days is the idea of these social coins. You probably know of Roll, that was very popular, and now they shut down. It was based on, instead of using NFT, it was like ERC20, so currencies for creators. And for me, it was always kind of strange as an approach, because it's like, if I'm a fan of a creator, it's not like I want to purchase their currency. I want to purchase the work they do. I want to access this. It is not about, getting, I'm sure there's the idea of getting money off of their fame eventually, but it's more like, hey, I really like what they do. I want to be able to access their concerts, maybe exclusively. Maybe I want to be recognized as an OG in their community, like, get all of the swag or something. It's not about and I'm sure for some people it is, but like most of the fans are not just about, oh, I'm going to make money because of that creator.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that those social coins, going back to the point about speculation, right? You don't know why someone's in the community. Whereas if you're putting out this membership token and you're very clear about its utility and its purpose, then everyone who gets it is going to be getting it for that reason. It's not like some perceived expectation of increased value or anything like that, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And on that point, actually, the expiration date is critical as well, because it tells you how active the member is. If I have an NFT from, I think Nickelback is from Winnipeg, right? The group. The
Nickelback,
band.
they're Canadian.
Yeah.
I don't think they're from Winnipeg.
Okay. Right. Anyway, let's say I have an NFT from Nickelback from 10 years ago. It's not the same thing as if I have one from last week, right? Tells you like, okay, cool. Maybe you were a fan back then and you're not a fan anymore right now. And so the date factor for me is a critical one that's missing completely, even in Web2. If you think about like all of your Facebook friends from high school, most of them, odds are, you haven't heard of in 20 years. And so they're not your social network anymore, even though they're treated the same as the people that you might have befriended like 2 weeks ago, which again is, I think, a missed opportunity from my perspective.
Yeah, that's huge. And the expiration and having the flexibility so you can set that expiration at a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever interval you want.
Yeah, as a creator, you set the base duration of each membership. So when people pay, that extends by that duration. So if I'm a creator, I set a monthly membership. Whoop, every time people pay, it adds up 30 days. Okay. But you could also say, and actually what I do on my blog, I grant memberships for shorter duration as trial. Like, oh, you want to read that article? I'll give it for free to you for like an hour or a month or a day. And so this way you have time to read it. But it's not like if you want to read the rest next week, then you're gonna have to extend and be more active from that perspective.
Oh, that's really neat. And can you tier your membership as well, or can you have like different layers of membership?
Yeah, what we tell people is that you should have multiple contracts. So if you need these tiers, you have a bronze, silver, gold. You have 3 different contracts that have different tiers, different prices, different duration. You might say, the bronze one is the short, cheap one is like, okay, $1 for a 1 week, right? And then the silver is a more engaged thing, is like $5 for a month. So you might say, okay, it's more expensive. It's also a bigger commitment. And then the gold is like $100 for a year, right? And so now it's like, okay, whatever as a user I'm going to purchase, I'm going to get more benefits, but I'm committing more of myself if I pay $100 versus just $1 for 1 week.
No doubt. And similar to ENS, they kind of have the option to pay for an X amount of months up front, or they can, decide to renew it as they expire.
So we don't show it on the UI by default because we felt like it was confusing to users, but yes, you can already kind of buy ahead of time, like 10 years worth of memberships. Like, okay, I'm going to buy, if the base membership is 1 month, I'm going to pay 10 times 12, 120 times the monthly thing to get a full 10-year NFT in my wallet.
Very cool. So I want to highlight some key messaging you have here on your website that I've got up, saying your members aren't a commodity, and to stop allowing platforms to treat them like one, right? And restore your power as a creator, create new revenue streams with NFTs, and have direct relationships with your members. So on that point about your members are not a commodity, I think that in the NFT space, especially when you're looking at some of these bigger PFP, 5,000, 10,000 collections, ultimately there is a sense of feeling like you are a commodity. And frankly, even the artists are kind of like always seem to be balancing this, like, am I a commodity or am I a creator, and you have collectors who talk to them like they're a commodity and like, you should be doing X, Y, and Z for us so that our value continues to go up, so I think it's such an important point looking at Web3, looking at NFTs. I just love your thoughts on that, and how are you kind of trying to flip the script on that narrative a bit?
I mean, what you said about the commodity thing, it's mostly because I think a lot of these NFT projects are highly, highly speculative. Right? When you have people say, hey, I want you to do X, Y, Z because the price is going to go up, they're actually not interested in the art or in the artist itself. They just want the price to go up. Right. And, again, that's fair in some contexts. But I do think that NFTs are a lot more powerful than just about this kind of highly, highly speculative version of the web. So for me, that's another point of the expiration. It makes things a lot less speculative. Like when if I have a thing that's going to expire in 2 weeks, it's obviously less valuable a week from now than it is right now because it's only 1 week left at that point. So it kind of built this idea, and it's not about, like, again, thousands of dollars worth of NFTs. It's like, well, maybe $1, $2. It's a very good tool to actually represent these cheap memberships. Because again, we should know this, but like if you charge people with a credit card, $1, it's practically not possible. You could do this, but the costs involved with that are going to be way higher than what the user ends up paying. And just even typing your credit card number is a nightmare at that point, just to pay $1, which is why you don't see anything less than $5 on these things, because it's actually too expensive. But I do think, again, if you use crypto here, you can actually go, maybe not quite to the cent level, but you can go to 50-cent, 20-cent memberships that give you access for a day, a week, a month to something that is really kind of, cheap and easy, kind of the vending machine kind of scenarios. Like, I don't have to think twice about this. I'm just going to put $1 here and I'm going to get something in return. That's what I want to enable for the web, because I do think it's a healthier model than just the attention grabbing economy that we've been living in for the last few years.
No doubt. Attention grabbing needs to be on its way out. And it's a recurring theme that we hear in this Web3 Warriors show often is like, is Web3 going to change the kind of data vampire, typical like manipulating structure of the ad-based economy, or is Web3 going to just continue to replicate the old mistakes, right? And I think
I hope it's not going to replicate the old mistakes, but sometimes, some days, and when we look at the PFP they are attention games in the end. Like, they are just like making noise. When I saw like Musk tweeted something about a Milady or a meme, and then there's like everybody's like, oh, I'm going to buy Miladies because of this, is like, damn it, you people, like, you don't understand. I mean, you don't understand. I'm sure you do. Maybe I don't understand, but like, I think there's a better world out there than that.
No, yeah, it's horrible. And that Miladies is one of the, it's a horrible project, frankly. Their community seems crazy. Yeah, but Elon is Elon, Yes, One other thing I definitely mentioned off the top that we always like to talk about at Web3 Warriors is the metaverse angle of this, right? And the concept of, like you say, being able to actually use these membership NFTs within the metaverse to limit the experience or allow for maybe an exclusive VIP area. Is that a major use case that you're looking at kind of in your marketing and the way that you push Unlock Protocol? And have you done anything in the metaverse already that you can kind of point to?
Yeah, so somebody in our community posted a very good integration into Decentraland, which is one of these metaverses, I guess. And it was exactly what you described. It is. I actually haven't been there in a long time myself, but it is a saloon in which you can only enter if you have one of the specific NFT memberships in your wallet. And for me, that's one of these examples. What I like about NFTs, and I tried to allude to that a couple minutes earlier, but it's really that they're not coupled to a specific website. Right now, let's take another one, Netflix, but like your New York Times membership or your Patreon membership is stuck in the Patreon database, which means that even in the physical world, you can't actually prove to anyone that you're a Patreon supporter. Like, how can I prove to you that I'm a supporter on Patreon? I can't, right? Like, the only people that can prove this is Patreon, basically, or if you're on the Patreon website. But if you move that away to kind of being an NFT, now you can go into places and show that NFT to someone. You can sign a message, technically speaking, that would prove that you own the NFT to the person on the other side, anywhere you are. And so you can be in the physical world, but it can also be in metaverses. And you can even, for me, what's interesting is like the same NFT can have different representation in different metaverse because it exists everywhere at the same time, not just in a single database where it's kind of stuck until the database is accessible on that metaverse.
Right. So each metaverse can acknowledge the NFT and assign a specific utility within that metaverse to the NFT.
Exactly.
Right? And that's a huge advantage of the decentralized membership that you're offering. So how are you kind of positioning this in opposition to a Patreon, to some of these centralized membership sites essentially that are trying to offer kind of what you're offering, but in a centralized way? Are you kind of directly marketing to some of those users, or is it more like going for the Web3 natives and kind of growing slowly kind of from that side?
For now, it is definitely going to the Web3 users because there's still a lot of Web3 kind of pre-required knowledge, like how to use a wallet, all of these things. Right. And I'm never going to frame this as against a Patreon, because I do think in the end, Patreon should be an implementer of the protocol. Like, we're building a protocol because we think it could actually be useful for Patreon. Like, I don't think there's actually anything that would prevent Patreon from a technical perspective. And even from a business perspective now, like, they can say, hey, sure, we'll let you sell membership through the Patreon platform, but you give us a cut, which is what they do right now. You sell, if you use Patreon, they take a cut. I don't know what their take rate is, but like it's maybe 15%. They take it. And so I think it would be very fine to say, hey, sure, we'll sell NFT memberships to your content, but we want to do that only if you give us 10 or 15%, which is what they already take. So for me, it's really about, let's actually build a world in which these memberships exist in many places, and then these places can compete on which one is the best to offer services to the creators rather than create lock-in. And now Patreon can say, we'll provide the best token gating, the best premium videos video platform to your fans, and now they can compete with Spotify. And what's interesting is like now I can go to Spotify for my music, and then go to Patreon for music videos, or for my jam session I go on YouTube Live or on Twitch. But it's the same membership that exists across the board, and now each of these platforms can sell memberships to my content and take their cut.
Awesome. So you see a future where the Spotifys and the Patreons are using your technology essentially because it makes sense. It makes sense for them across the board.
It makes sense for them, and it makes sense for users, because in the end it builds a better ecosystem for the web. I think to me that's kind of the long-term play of what we're going after.
Wow, that's awesome. And when you look at the evolution into the metaverse, like, do you have any thoughts on how that is going to help with adoption? And like, have you kind of bake that into your marketing plan at all? Like the idea that digitizing the world and people kind of jumping into these digital worlds is becoming more commonplace. Is that a big part of kind of what you're doing?
It's not necessarily a huge part, because I myself I'm not a user of metaverse that much. I'm not a gamer and not using it that much, so I wouldn't. But the idea of, again, the membership exists in multiple places is critical and central to what we're saying. And so and again, I mentioned oftentimes the physical and the digital, but I think there's many digital versions, and that's the metaverse is, I guess. The NFT exists in all of these places because it's the same object that exists in a different dimension, basically, and it can be used by all of these platforms. So I'm convinced that this is useful in that context. It's just because I'm not an expert in metaverse myself. I actually don't talk that much about this, but I do think that applies very, very well there.
Yeah, I think you've got a really great target audience kind of baked in there when they see this potential. And I love that it is multi-metaverse, like it could really work across all the different metaverse places, like you say, to have different utility in the different spaces, because you're just, reading the smart contract. So it's really fascinating. Very cool, very cool. So final question, or one of our final questions, just looking at kind of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the wider space, right? And even just right now, kind of in the bear market, how do you navigate it, and how do you or do you bother even trying to convince people that this Web3 route, for all the reasons we've stated during this episode, right? The multiple angles and being universally acceptable, all different places, including IRL, which is really cool. So how do you kind of pitch it to your average person out there when you're telling them about how great Unlock Protocol is and how it can change the game for memberships and digital memberships and communities?
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, definitely in the bear market, nobody wants to look at this, and crypto is a scam. And you see the president of the United States saying, "Oh, crypto is just like, whatever rich people's like." No, it's not this. It's a core technology. Yeah, I'm making the same face, and it's so disappointing, because I do think, I've heard people in government say they're going after big tech. This is the way to go. It's not about saying, "Oh, we don't like big tech," that you're actually going to make big tech disappear. It's actually by doing things, and we actually take that same approach where we say, there's so much we can do by pitching and explaining. At some point, we need to build stuff, and so we're trying to build. And we're building, not just trying, we're successfully building and iterating on tons of different small products that actually showcase what can be done. So, for example, we haven't talked about this, but Unlock is being used widely for ticketing. A ticket to a conference is a membership to the conference, or a ticket to a concert is a membership to the concert. We've been pushing really hard all of the space to say, nope, it's time to move on to using crypto native technologies for ticketing. Don't use Eventbrite or any of this. And so we have a ticketing solution called Events by Unlock that actually works pretty well.
And would it work with an Eventbrite? Just curious, or is it kind of independent?
It's independent, obviously, because Eventbrite actually has a database, and there's no database there. But I do think it works better, and it doesn't even require you to use a wallet. So that's what I was saying earlier. It's like the wallet is there if you want to have one, and you can use this. But if you don't have a wallet, you can still get an NFT and a QR code attachment to your email that you can show when you go to the venue without knowing or caring at all about NFTs or Web3. And for me, this is interesting, because that means that now, as a non-Web3 user, I can use this, and it's almost like, hey, I'm missing on half of the benefits of that thing because I'm not able to log in on website by connecting my wallet and proving that I have a ticket to the concert. That's when I'm going to onboard. That's when I'm going to, download the wallet, and then maybe buy cryptocurrencies to actually purchase my next membership. So we're really trying to kind of ease the way in by building product rather, and we're still doing pitching, and I'm doing marketing work and recording podcasts. But it's really, I think, in the bear market, the powerful thing is since it's not audible, like whatever you can say, most people will just ignore because bear market and because NFTs are scam.
Yeah.
It's about building and kind of showing rather than telling.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was at NFT NYC recently, and we had an event where, if you had the NFT, you could have specific like exclusive seating, and everyone
Yep.
else, and a free drink, I think. So it's kind of interesting. And I was just clicking over to your events section on the site, and it says Web3 is better in real life. And I have
Yep.
to agree with that, and I like the idea of
Yes.
adding that utility. I've often said the NFTs are the gamification of life, actually, because
Yes.
digital assets were already fun for me as a gamer, in the digital world. But now that they've been given this like real world value, it's really just gamified life and made things easier. And I was looking at some of these other sections you had. I love the flocker concept,
Yep.
what you're pulling
So
together.
Yeah. So Flocker,
Yeah.
basically the idea is like, hey, when you're a creator, you have members across the board. Every social network, you have to rebuild a network. That sucks. What if you actually had an easy way for people to claim one of these NFTs? Say, hey, I'm a fan of yours. Wherever you go, I'm going to follow you, basically. And then on different platforms, people can just access your content based on this. It doesn't have to be a paid membership, but it's really kind of a follower model. That's one of these. Another one we launched this week is Alpha Tweet, which I think is a cool one. Is basically the idea of rewarding people resharing your content. So let's say you create, private premium content. Right now, well, when you do this, your fans are going to be able to read this, but you're losing all of the distribution that comes with social networks. Well, with something like Alpha Tweet, you can reward the people that are distributing that content. Say, okay, cool, you'll get 20%, 50%, whatever, of what I make as money if you reshare that with your friends and they end up retweeting. So kind of creating this referral model in Web3. And that wouldn't be possible to do that without Web3. Otherwise, you would have to do, allow list and kind of vet everyone to be a reseller. Here it's like, nope, it's just a smart contract actually takes care of this. And if you're the best distributor of my content, I want you to distribute it even without asking my permission.
No doubt. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I was just looking at this Alpha Tweet concept as
Yep.
well. I saw it on the Twitter as well. And how do you feel about the way Twitter is kind of handling verification, as far as like you got their blue checks, but then also they're talking about adding, monetization. And I know Jack was a big fan of crypto and Bitcoin and was kind of slowly integrating Bitcoin
Yep.
payments on the platform. Do you think there's a place for centralized entities like a Twitter to kind of push Web3 forward? Or
I mean, I hope they do, and I think they will. So what you said about Twitter. So a couple things. First, they did a bunch of Web3 stuff, like the NFT avatar.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
again an NFTs avatar, but still a step in the right direction. You can connect your wallet to Twitter and actually start doing things. The other thing that they're doing right now, so they shut down initially there was called Superfollow, but now Musk apparently revived them a couple of weeks, last week or something, and now he has subscribers. I do think that's great, but if I'm a subscriber to Musk on Twitter, it's limited to Twitter. If Musk starts to post, I'm not sure he's going to post on Blue Sky, but if he starts to post somewhere else, I'm not going to be able to access his premium content, which sucks because I would much rather be able to subscribe to him through Twitter, give Twitter the 20%, whatever is the take rate that they have, but then be able to access his premium content anywhere on the web. And again, now it means that Twitter can compete with all of these platforms on the best features rather than just on the lock-in that they are able to create there. So eventually, I hope Alpha Tweet is part of Twitter. The protocol would be open and is open and decentralized, so they can use it today. But I hope they build this similar mechanism to Alpha Tweet inside of Twitter.
Yeah, I think the more you can kind of allow creators to have control and really incentivize their community and create revenue and create value for their community, the better, right? Wow, this has really been eye-opening, and I'm very interested in Unlock Protocol, and I look forward to seeing how it continues to evolve and expand into the future. Do you have any final points or thoughts you want to bring up here, or any other parts of your products that you want to highlight before we wrap up here?
No, I think I've preached about Unlock a bunch, and I hope people will check it out and then start using it for different things. Maybe one thing that I want to tell, like dog fooding is a concept that is critical to our success in the Web3 ecosystem. Is like whenever we can, let's use Web3 based solution. I know it's not the easiest. I know sometimes it's going to feel unnatural or it's going to feel a bit awkward to go connect your wallet in things. But if we want this ecosystem to succeed, we in the ecosystem need to be using it more, because that loop of like, oh, I use it, the person on the other side who's made it learns from my usage, understands the friction, improves it, means that it's going to be easier and easier to actually get normies, and I don't like that term, but like non-crypto, non-Web3 people to actually eventually onboard and use that.
It's a good gamer term, normies or newbies.
Yes.
Yeah, and do you think that the IRL connection is kind of the secret sauce for that? Like people, attending IRL events and seeing those with the NFT holders getting special perks and being like, hey, how do I get in on that? Like, do you think that's part of the secret sauce?
I do think it's part of the secret sauce. Like for me, it's actually crypto is interesting because, let's almost philosophical, like forget about Web3 NFT 1 second, but like the invention of Bitcoin is like digital scarcity, right? It's like you're able to make something that is digital, but then not copyable for the first time. And for me, one of the things that was always making it hard to actually bridge from the virtual world to the real world is the fact that there is basically the ability to copy things. And so it's like digital tickets were really hard to do because everybody can copy the ticket, and then that creates kind of friction. Digital money was really hard because everybody was able to create this thing. But like when you start moving back to a world where now it exists, digital scarcity, you can have stuff that are digital that slowly, and as you said, transpire in the IRL world. And for me, that's kind of one of the things that's going to make the web even more IRL. I actually don't buy the URL versus IRL thing. I actually think we're all, the same people doing the same
reality,
thing.
Yeah.
It's all reality. Like I spend half of my days behind the screen. Yeah. I'm pretty convinced this is real. Like and so we're going to see more and more of that. And so anything that actually limits or anything that empowers basically this virtual thing to be usable in the physical world is powerful. And again, that's what NFTs are doing there.
Yeah, most definitely. It's been a big recurring theme, the idea that instead of thinking IRL versus digital, just think of it as like an extension of reality into the digital world. It's not in contrast to it. It's just an extension of it,
And all the other way around. Like, I do think that, yes, it used to be that digital is an extension of the real world, but I think more and more the real world is going to be just an extension of the digital world. And for better or worse, I mean, again, we spend most of our life connected, like whether it's on the screen, on the computer, but, these phones. I challenge anyone to, go into a random city. I mean, not anyone, and then don't use their phones. I give them like half hour before they start pulling their hair. It's like, fuck, where am I? What am I going to do?
How do people exist before phones?
Exactly. And so, and that phone is only useful because it is connected to the internet. It's not just, if I give you a dial phone in the middle of nowhere, you're like, what can I do with this? But if you have internet now, all of a sudden you can learn where you are, kind of get help, pay for stuff, like, and reorganize. So I do think more and more that the physical world, and again, putting a lot of air quotes here, is becoming, and I think that's good, an extension of the digital world more than the other way around.
I like it. I can vibe with that for sure. I'm sure there are others out there who might disagree, but you won't hear any arguments from me. that definitely seems to be the case. It is
going to be like that, right? Whether we want it or not, it's going to be relevant. This is the direction. It's pretty obvious that it's more and more important. Like, shut down the internet for a week. I mean, there's a reason why, in Turkey and Russia and a bunch of places, they shut down the internet, right? Yep. It's because that makes people unable to organize themselves.
And I have to say, I won't say it's my biggest fear because I'm not wishing that, but I do think the only thing that can really mess up the evolution of Web3 and the metaverse is geopolitical nonsense.
It is definitely one of the things that can create harm, and in some weird way at the same time make it obvious that this is what we need. Like, I was looking at a chart this morning that was kind of doing circles on Twitter, but like it's a penetration of crypto wallets in the world, and it's mind-blowing to see how none of the Western worlds or none of the Western countries are on there. So basically the list is like Turkey, Argentina, Brazil, like places where well, you don't have the same kind of infrastructure that we have in the West, and it's pretty obvious that the digital version of that infrastructure is better than the physical version. It reminds me of another thing. Like when I graduated, a bunch of school friends joined the big telco in French, the big telecom operator, and they started installing 5G in some African countries and poor countries in the world generally. And one of the things they were telling all the time is like these countries will never go through DSL. Basically, they're leaping ahead because there is no point in having that infrastructure. And I think we're kind of the same here, where a bunch of countries are like, wait, we could use digital coins. It would be so much better than actually use the local currency, which is completely broken, and trying to fix it doesn't make sense. We should move already to the next generation of what these currencies and what these economies are, which are visual economies.
Yeah, and these kind of antiquated traditional banking industry. Systems, we had a few episodes back a speaker, Emmanuel Daniel, who comes from kind of the banking industry, and he had this concept that like 70-80% of what banks do are going the way of an ice machine. They're just completely unnecessary anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'd say 90%, but yes,
maybe 90.
and it's frustrating because there's a cost to that that we all bear for very little benefits outside of maintaining the status quo, which sometimes you want to say maybe we shouldn't have to maintain the status quo for the sake of maintaining the status quo.
Yeah, they'll have some utility, but to your point, and the developing countries see it the best because their systems are broken. Sometimes they can't even go to a bank and get cash out. Meanwhile, they can receive crypto in 10 seconds from someone buying their art on the blockchain,
or even work for a US company without having to think twice about this. And this is good. Like, this is what we want to be able to enable. Like, where you are born shouldn't be a limitation to what you can do. There's no reason why me being born in France in a fairly, in the grand scheme of things, regard to the world, wealthy family or situation, shouldn't be a head start over some guy who is as smart, maybe even smarter than me, who was born in Nigeria or Senegal or India. That kid should have the same chances that I have. And it's not just about, it's more fair. It's for the best. Like, I think right now, if you think about, half of the smart brains in the world are wasted because they are starving, and it's kind of lame.
Tragic, yeah.
And it's tragic. It's a miss for everyone. But like, I want all of the smart people to be able to build better things because they have the infrastructure to do so and not be stuck, again, starving is maybe a big word, but like having to worry about things that I don't have to worry because I'm in a wealthy, affluent society.
Yeah, and that's why the adoption isn't quite as fast here, to your point, right? Because we're all just enjoying our privileges, and our banking systems are fairly reliable, although still, antiquated for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we don't have to worry too much, even though more these days. We were using Silicon Valley Bank as our bank, so this was a big bit serious.
Yeah, that hurts.
That did hurt, but this is like, well, we don't need to hurt. There's a better world out there.
No doubt. All right, peer-to-peer for the win,
Yes.
That's it. That's the bright future we're all looking for, and I agree, Web3 is ushering that in. So thank you so much, Julien, for your time. I hope you have an amazing day. We'll have our podcast live by later this weekend, usually by Sundays, and I really appreciate it. I'll send you the link when it's ready.
Please do. Thanks. It was a pleasure to be on, David, and let's meet IRL at some point.
For sure. I'm going to be a regular at NFT.nyc, so next time I'll know to reach out to you when I'm in the city, for sure.
Perfect.
Look forward to it. All right. Till next time, we'll catch everybody in the metaverse. Peace out.
Bye, everyone.